Guru, Guru, Va, 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 Guru,
ठीक है
Guru,
ज्यादा तो नहीं हुआ
Guru, Va, 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 Guru. ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ ਸਾਧ ਜੀ. Thank you again for your time this week. This week, again, we're going to continue the topic of anger. We spent quite a lot of time talking about anger, and hopefully today we can start to draw some conclusions around it a little bit, at least for the sessions that we've had. Today we're going to be looking at building self-awareness, but as we do every week, start with a recap. So the recap is really important just for orientation because a lot changes during the week. So it's important to get us, again, a little bit mind aligned on what we've covered and what we're going to do next. So if you remember week 1, we were trying to look at the difference between what does Gurbani say for anger and what does modern psychology say around anger. And during that course of the hour session that we went through, it was very clear that there's two different kind of paths around what people believe anger looks like.
So in Gurbani, this is simply not part of who we are. Anger is not part of who we've been or what we should be. But in modern society, anger is deemed to be a normal type of behavior, a normal situation, normal response is permitted as part of society and part of life. So we learned in that session that actually anger is not who we are, is someone else making us feel angry, someone else giving us these thoughts, someone else giving us these feelings. Then in week 2, we looked at the root cause of anger, like where does anger originate from? And we started to look at it from, again, the society view, which was at the trigger point. When does a trigger take place that makes me have a feeling or some type of expression? And then we looked at it from a Gurbani sense, and we said actually anger came to us at the point where we were given this June or this body, this seed. At the point this body was being formulated, we were put into Bhavsagar, and Bhavsagar is given to Kal, and this whole kale started to begin at that stage. So we've had a long-standing relationship with the 5 thieves, but also with Sach. So we're looking at how did anger start to manifest itself inside us way before we could speak, or way before we had the feelings where we were feeling angry. So this is a very interesting topic, and it was really interesting when we started to look at like the journey of a person feeling angry. What is a manmuk? So someone who follows their own thoughts and own thinking, own principles. Well, how do they respond to anger, and how do the Panch Chod latch onto them? Whereas when you're Gurmukh or someone who follows Gurbani and what the Gurus tell us, how does anger try to latch onto you, but what do you use to protect yourself? And this was when we talked about how we manage our breath, how we create space inside, how we can move our focus out of the situation more into sun, and even how we can pick a thought that exists in this space around us, whether we take it or whether we leave it. So lesson 2 or week 2, we looked at some of these ideas. And then in week 3, we said, let's stop talking about anger and let's start talking about ourselves, how we're impacted by the anger that exists. And if we're able to recognize that the mind's being manipulated. So if anger is not part of us, anger is a manipulation. So if anger is manipulating us, where does it send us? Or what does it break? And we tried a little exercise where we said, let's do Char Akkar Simran, which meant we said Wa on our mouth, He on our heart, Gu on our belly button, Ru just 2 inches below. And we tried this exercise, and almost everyone had thoughts coming into their mind. So no one had the task to think of a thought. Everyone's task was to think of the Shabad and put your dhyan, your focus, on those 4 positions. So if there's a thought that arises, then we're manipulated because we didn't decide on that thought. That thought was given to us. We didn't take the thought. When I say take the thought, that means we instructed the mind to think. So in this situation, we're given the thought and it's disrupting our Simran. And then we went further and said, okay, where does anger stop? So anger is not permitted to go past Bhavsagar. Anger exists with Kal in Bhavsagar. Bhavsagar goes up to your Turkutti, which is here, the boundary between your eyes. But above this is your home. So we said, if you want to escape anger, not have this feeling anymore, or at least when you recognize the feeling coming, you have a place to go, a place to escape, then you go above your Turkutti, essentially home into Sun. And then we talked more about Sun. What does it feel like to sit inside Sun? How is it quiet, and how is it very calm and relaxed area of the mind? And what can you hear inside these spaces? And we talked about hearing the Shabad, following the Shabad, and finally going home to Sach. So that's what we learned in the whole, in week 3, where we talked about how to identify how the mind's being manipulated, but how to grow from this point. I think this week we're going to spend a bit more time on the foundation that holds this table. And essentially, it's building self-awareness and becoming aware of anger, the responses you have, and the consequences that exist. And I think it's really important to look at this as a foundation block, because we've had all of those inputs as knowledge and gyan that's come into our minds. But what we want to do is now, how do we take it with us? You know? So we're going to go through lesson week 4, and we're going to do a bit of thinking about what it means to build a foundation, but also too, what have we, myself and Anudeep, learned during this time with you? What have we heard from the group? And then we've got a kind of a bit of responses to some of those questions as well, which we've added right at the end. So here we talk about anger. It's a condition, which means it's the final condition that takes place, not the symptom. So when we do our Simran and we sit inside, we have a lot of time where we spend time thinking about ourselves. I, me, my. The hankar, the ego, starts to build. And then we have desires, or things that we think we want, or things that we think we need. And when those desires don't get fulfilled, it leads to frustration, anger, and duality, where we see ourselves different from everyone else, higher, lower, different, and we have judgment across people, and that causes anger as well. Also, obviously, people having judgment back to us. When we go to these areas, then it's very quick for Carl and the Punch Jaw to take us from there and sit us inside Tamogun. And when we sit inside Tamogun, we're essentially set inside a cage where our arms and legs are shackled, our necks also shackled and closed. We're now not able to move from there. The longer you spend in Tamogun, the better it is for the Punch Jaw, because they essentially win your swas. Your swas is now their property because they've taken it from you. So this is the kill that we're playing every day, especially when we have these internal burning feelings of anger. It's about pushing you to these desires or these symptoms, I'd call them, and then the condition that is Tamogun itself, moving you there. And we're not alone. So Bhagat Faridji says he looked at the same condition inside himself first, and then he said, can I see this in the world? So Farid, I thought that I was in trouble. The whole world is in trouble. When I climbed the hill and looked around, I saw this fire in each and every home. So this ugh, this fire of burning desire, whether it's in Rajagun or Tamogun, he sees it everywhere. We're all on fire. And the problem with fire is it's very easy to catch fire from someone else. So when someone else is burning, they'll cause burning in someone else. Like we talked in, I think it was lesson 1 where we talked about, can you catch this? And not only does Gurbani say, yes, you can catch this anger feeling, psychology says you can also catch this anger feeling as well. Just by being around someone who's feeling angry, we can feel this. So if every house is burning, the problem is including you, you're also burning too. So we talked about this last week where we said in Gurbani it talks about the holy sadhus. This mind cannot be restrained. Fickle desires dwell within it, and so it cannot remain steady. The heart is filled with anger and violence, which cause all senses to be forgotten. So this is the condition we all exist inside, unless we do Simran. So unless we spend time controlling the mind, then this is our condition, our state. But it's not a condition of you or me or anyone. It's a condition of the whole dunya. So this is people, whether you're Sikh, Muslim, Hindu, Buddhist, Christian, anything, simply doesn't matter. Everyone will feel these same feelings because it's the whole world is on fire. So it's very, very important to recognize that there's a difference between being on fire and not being on fire. And in order not to be on fire, you have to be outside of the fire. Yeah. And how do you go outside the fire? And this we practice every day. Wah, gru, wah, gru, wah, gru. When we're doing Simran and your dhyan's on it, you're already moving outside the fire. However, we might still feel the fire because we're attached. We have attachment to the fire. This is the world we know, the world we understand. What we need to do is spend more time inside rather than outside on this fire. Even if the burning's happening inside, there's space inside called sun where you have no fire there. So we have to spend time doing these things. So we were having a conversation. It was very hard to figure out what to discuss in this last session. And he said, you just got cut to the chase. It's about meditation. So we can talk about maybe not being around certain people. We will talk about these things, not being around certain people, not feeling these things, or try to control yourself. But reality is in order to control the mind, you have to meditate. So we haven't used the word do Simran here. Simran is obviously very, very, very important, but we're expanding this concept to meditation because by listening to katha, you can immediately get quite a lot from there. By doing Part regularly, you immediately get a lot from these things. So it's not only about doing Simran, it's about building a lifestyle that allows you to control the mind. Simran is very, very important because this is a method that you can use every minute, every second of the day. You can use it on every swas. Part, it gives you the gyan, but even through the part itself, you take quite a lot away. So the most important thing is we have to talk about this topic of meditation. So we've been very, very blessed as a Sikh community. Guru Ram Das Ji created the Harmandir Sahib, and the Harmandir Sahib itself is a map. This map is the same outside and the same inside. So what you can see, this diagram, this photo, the reason why I really like this photo is it shows you the chaos outside the Harmandir Sahib and the peace inside the Harmandir Sahib. And what was really, really beautiful is when you go to the Harmandir Sahib, you can be just outside, you'll hear the horns of the cars, you'll hear people in the markets, you'll hear everything going on. But the moment you walk down the steps and you go inside, all that noise has gone away. All you hear is Kirtan. So the temple's built lower than the ground level, meaning if you want to enter this home, remember this is a map. The Harmandir Sahib is your home. This is a depiction of sun. To even enter that path, to even start that path, you must be humble. So when we're doing Simran, or we start our Simran, start by being humble. Don't bring your growth into the Simran. Don't bring ego into the Simran. Start by being humble. 4 entrances means this is not only for Sikhs, this is for everyone. And there's only one route into the Harmandir Sahib and one route out of Harmandir Sahib. Same as in going to Sun. When we go into Sun, there's one route into Sun, one route out of Sun. And it's the same for everyone. So whoever's been blessed with a human body, they have the same rasta to Sun, same rasta out of Sun. And it's shown physically in the Harmandir Sahib. So when we talked about Simran, we talk about how we focus and go from our belly button, which is Satogun, up past the Turkutti to Mokti Hut. This is essentially Harmandir Sahib. So when we're doing Simran, we're slowly going on the path, you know? And as we go up, we pass the Turkutti and we go into Sun. So we're either on the path, and when we go into Sun, we're free of the Panj, which means lust, anger, greed, pride, attachment. These things don't touch you. Ego, obviously. None of these things touch you. But the moment you come out of Sun, you're going back into Gal's world. We talked about this last week. There's three homes. Bhavsagar is one home. We're all here right now in Bhavsagar. Another home is Sun. We can all go to our own home in Sun. And the last one is Sachkhand, where Waheguru himself will call you home, into his home. 3 homes. So this diagram, we looked at where we're on the path where you're in Bhavsagar, you can go up, free of the Panj, meaning there's no more anger. You've defeated anger while you're there. But when you need to go back into Bhavsagar, you're back on the path again. You're back inside Bhavsagar. And a Gurmukh, or someone who does Simran, understands whether they're on the path or outside this path. Manmukh, they can be thrown off the path completely, lost the game. Where their mind is outside the body, the mind is wandering, and now anger's fully taken control of the body. Lust has fully taken control of the body. Gal and Panchjot are full in control. This is why it's very important to spend time understanding this one diagram is about a whole life. So I'm going to go back. On the path, meaning you to be on this path, you're doing your Simran. You're slowly moving your Surti up. outside of Bhavsagar, which means none of the Panch Chor Kal, you're outside of their grip, you're in your own home. When you return back, you're back on the path. If there is too many thoughts, too many thinking, too much emotion that's causing your mind to go all over the show, thrown off the path. And then then the Panch Chor, they control your body, they control your thoughts, they control your responses, they control your emotions. You're outside, you're in thoughts. So very important to understand this. And if we need to, you can go to Harmandir Sahib to physically see this. So where are the challenges? Like, how do we make this real for everyone? So where are the challenges? So some of the challenges exist inside you or me, individuals. I'm the problem. You know? The other side is your family circle. You're born with Sanjogis, but doesn't mean that these Sanjogis think the same as you. Some may be doing Simran, some may be not doing Simran, some may be stopping you from doing Simran. And then there's your friend circle, where you're trying to fit into a society, fit inside a circle or group of people, and other times where it's just impossible to fit inside this group. So we're going to look at some of these. When we look at the family circle, everyone has their own swas. Those swas are limited, and where you spend them is where you get your fruits and your rewards. You might be doing Simran on Satogun and slowly moving from Satogun to Moktihat. Your mom or dad, your dad or sister could be sitting in Rajogun, where their primary focus is about worldly things, their worldly duties. And maybe mom and brother sitting in Tamogun, where they're controlled by more animalistic instincts like anger and lust and ego. For all of these folks to sit on the same page now, very, very difficult. For all of these guys to sit on the same hut together, e.g. to everyone come to Satogun, very, very difficult. So it's important to not only understand everyone's doing different things, but actually try to build a lifestyle together with the family where everyone's doing Simran together. It could be basic. We talked about this at one of the programs, and we said, if you can't do Simran together, at least eat together, or at least spend time together, and slowly start to change the dialogue into Sikhi. Because when you're talking about Sikhi, all of you are now talking about your internal being, your internal mind. And it's very important because that takes you away from the worldly conflicts, the worldly kind of issues and challenges that take place. So it's important for you guys to sit as a family together, and slowly everyone will sit, at least for that period of time, on the same hut. And if you're all sitting on the same hut, slowly, all of your thinking will become aligned. You know? So it's very important to look at the family circle and respect the family circle, because this family is who Waheguru wants you to be with. It's Sanjogis from past lifetimes all come together again. So it's very important to know this family circle is very, very strong and very powerful. But spending time together on the same hut will align everyone. You know. But if you're going to spend time on a hut, try to make it the Satoguna. And then when we look at friend circle, Sant Baba Isha Singh, he had a lot of gyan, and he did a lot of gamai. And one thing, amazing thing that he mentioned was, when you're spending time with friends, those friends will determine who you become. And I think even in psychology, it says the 5 friends that you're like. Show me your 5 friends, and I'll show you what your future will look like. And he says, take a thief, put him in the company of saints, and he will become a saint. Take a saint and put him in the company of thieves, and he'll become a thief. So we have to be very careful who we spend our time with. Sometimes we're in beautiful company, like the Sat Sangat, and Gurbani gives a lot of, I'd say, energy or clout to the Sat Sangat, because essentially the Sat Sangat is the Sangat where you're doing Simran. Everyone's focusing and they're spending their time together to get to Satogun. Everyone's talking about the vichar of the Simran. So friend circle is very important to make sure we know who's a friend and who's not a friend. And if your friends are friends that never talk about the internal Khel, never talk about Simran, then you got to understand, is this a friend who's going to help me meet Sach, or is this a friend that's going to help me in this life that I have or professional work that I have? Where is it that this friendship's taking me? And then try to find friends that'll help you on your Simran. So we talked quite a bit. It will be good to do some Simran. So we'll do our 10 minutes of Simran, and then we'll come back and look at situations that we've been in, the challenges that we've been hearing between the group, as the group's been sometimes sending us messages and texts about questions they've had. We'll look at some of those questions as well. But remember, you can't listen to Katha and have Gyan without doing the Simran. The Simran is the most important thing, because that's the thing that takes you out of Rajagun into Satogun, and hopefully past Satogun to Mukti Hut. And once you're in Mukti Hut, anger can't touch you there. So let's start. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa,
Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Vaheguru, 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 Vaheguru,
Until God Simran. ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। So Satsang ji, during this past 4 weeks, past 3 weeks up till now, we've been quite lucky because we've had the chance to talk to some of you offline and have a more detailed discussion around your Simran and some of the challenges folks face. And what was really interesting was some of these challenges, the same challenges we faced in the past, still face today. So what we thought was best to share some of these, and we can look at how does Simran help, you know. So what we done was we separated the two. So on the right hand side where it talks about I, me, my, essentially hankar, where it talks about ego, this was something we've mentioned in the class. Desires and duality we've also mentioned in class, but the things on the left hand side, things that people have been talking to us about. So the concept of overthinking in life, but also overthinking during Simran, not experiencing any bliss during Simran, lack of focus, difficult to set a pattern for doing Simran, holding Dhyan in one place was very difficult. And sometimes people say Simran itself, I find it quite boring. How do I make it more exciting? So these are interesting things that we should look at, but what we try to do is look at it in line with how Gurbani sees these things. So we try to look at the challenges in as kind of blockers or walls that are leading you towards anger, but also these blockers and walls keeping you away from going home into sun. So I, me, my. So the idea that I have hankar, I have ego, I'm trying to hold my dhyan in one place. I'm trying to set a Simran pattern. When we sit and do Simran, Waheguru's called us to do his Simran, you know. So the fact that we think I'm doing Simran, I'm holding my dhyan, I'm doing these things, we are doing the action, but the actual dhyan being held, Waheguru's kirpa. Yeah, there's a lot of kirpa that takes place, and when people start to receive things through their Simran, all this is blessings and kirpa from such. Very hard for any individual to say I can take on the Panch Jor, I can take on Kal. It's very, very unlikely. This Khel is so big, Waheguru is taking the responsibility for all of it. Desires, I'm desiring to experience bliss. I think this is what bliss should feel like. Maybe I should be feeling like this. Or Simran's boring because I have overthinking going on. These desires are problem area. Duality, where I have a lack of focus. I'm thinking about Simran, but I'm also thinking about something else. And this overthinking that's constantly taking place. All of these things slowly move you towards not only anger, but all of Bhavsagar, Satogun, Rajagun, Tamogun, all these things keep you trapped inside this cycle of Bhavsagar. So before we start looking at each challenge, we should recognize that it's Waheguru. All of the things that we experience is such. You know? So Waheguru himself does Simran. Waheguru himself gives thoughts. These thoughts are in the form of Kal. Kal's given full hukum of Bhavsagar. If you're in Bhavsagar, you're at the mercy of Kal. Waheguru himself calls you to your home in Sun. He calls you from your home into his home in Sachkhand. Waheguru himself gives the gifts, and he gives this bliss. No one can give you these things. It all comes from such. So in Gurbani, Guru Ram Das Ji says, you yourself bless us with soul, body, and everything. You yourself cause us to act. As you issue your commands, so do we act according to our preordained destiny. All of these things, such as given us when we came into the world. So let's look at challenge 1. Under the kind of lens of ego, I, me, my identification with the ego leads to expectations, unmet expectations lead to anger. Holding dhyan in one place, people said this is very difficult. How do I hold dhyan in one place? And also, how do I set a pattern for doing my Simran? So holding dhyan in one place, some people find it very difficult holding dhyan inside. So when we shut our eyes, we're immediately looking at darkness, complete black, nothing's there, you know? So how do I hold my dhyan in nothing, in this area of nothing? So if it's very hard for holding dhyan, you should, when you're doing Simran, you should hold your dhyan on your belly button, which means you focus on your belly button and do Simran. The focus will control the eyes to look down. The speaking, doing Simran, Wah, Guru, will control the mouth, and listening will control the ears. But it's very hard to do that. Then start with the dhyan outside. So remember we talked about this, I think we talked about it last week. We said put your hand up, hold the finger out, look at the tip of the finger, and hold your dhyan, your focus on that finger. Your finger will become in focus, everything behind will come in blur, will look blurry. But just having this behavior to start to focus teaches the mind that I want you to start to sit. The aim is to have full attention on the finger, and the objective is tell this mind, sit. I'm teaching you to sit. So the way to do this, 20 centimeters away from mouth, eyes looking at the tip of your finger with your mouth, say Wah, Guru, as you breathe in and as you breathe out, and listen with your own voice. So you can start here, but after this you have to go inside where the eyes are closed. Okay. The next one was, it's difficult to set a Simran pattern. So a pattern that we've done in the past was, which was quite helpful, is sometimes very hard to do Simran, Saskras, loud for a very long period of time, because it can hurt, you can dry your throat, dry your mouth, it gets a bit difficult. But doing it loud is very important. When you do it loud, it focuses the mind very quickly. So it's important to make sure you're doing it loud and make sure you spend time doing it loud. So what we've done is we've started to oscillate between the two. So 15 minutes loud Saskara Simran, Wah, Guru, Wah, Guru, Wah, Guru. And then 15 minutes Antargat, where there's no more speaking, listening to your own internal voice, doing the Simran. Yeah. And do this and then repeat it as many times as you can. We've also talked to people doing 5 minutes and 10 minutes of Simran. This is nice when you're starting, but it's important to increase your Simran. I was talking to my Babiji, and she was saying, like, even if you do 5 minutes Simran, you don't know what Waheguru is going to give you. Maharaj gives you as much as he wants, because all these gifts, like we said earlier, come from Sach. And there are people that do 1 minute of Simran and they go straight to Sachkhand. There are people who do 5 minutes Simran straight to Sachkhand. 100% there are these people, but there's not that many of them. So make sure you recognize that it's important for you to spend time doing a Simran. Don't think, okay, I did 1 minute of Simran, why didn't I get it, but that person did? It's not important. What's important is knowing that you have to do a Simran because you have to control your mind. You know? So please recognize the reality of what condition your own mind is in, and spend the time inside the body doing Simran. So if the mind can't sit inside, focus outside. The mind's now going inside, then do Simran, Wah, Guru, because you're now starting to remove the jal from your tongue, removing jal from your ears. Slowly, you'll start to be able to taste Amrit and listen to the Shabads. But very important to start to go Antargat as well. Another one. So challenge 2, desires. So unmet desires lead to frustration and anger. So I'm not experiencing bliss, I'm gonna get really angry. Simran can be boring, so don't find this interesting. I'm still angry because I have to do it, but I find it boring. I think this is a condition of being overstimulated. So we are constantly looking for input, whether it's the never-ending scrolling of the mobile phone, whether it's Netflix, I don't know, whether it's even just a gull that has nothing to do with me, but I'm gonna go and sit inside that conversation just because it's something to do. We are constantly overstimulated, and Harmandir Sahib's a beautiful example of this. Look outside, all that stimulation's going on outside. Come inside, peace. So you can't have the same peace as you do in Amritsar, inside the Harmandir Sahib, outside Harmandir Sahib. But what we're asking for is, I want to have that peace in this overstimulated world. You can't. They're two separate things. So make sure you understand, where are you sitting? Are you sitting in the crowd, or are you sitting in sun? These are very important. Spend time thinking about this, because if you're not experiencing bliss in Simran, it's because your mind is still inside that overstimulated crowd. And that crowd is the Panchjor. Yeah. So, and then what happens? We need to move, obviously, outside of that crowd into sun. So escape that chaos, find that area of quiet and peace. And once you get to that area of quiet and peace, that sun, the mind feels that peace, the body feels peace, and the body's provided sustenance. The body's breath will take care of itself. Even amount of food you need to eat changes. But the most important thing is when you go to this area of peace, Mukti Hut, from that position you have the ability to meet Sach. From that position you can hear Sach calling you. From that position you can go home by following his voice. Okay? Then challenge 3 is duality. So separation between self and others leads to judgment, pride, comparison, and anger. We used the notes from conversations we've had: lack of focus, overthinking. We put this inside duality because this is us having two feet in two different boats. One, we want to have the bliss from Simran. The other one, we want to focus on the other boat that's going towards the conversation I had with my wife or my brother last week. So we got to make sure we understand what we're doing. If we're sitting to do Simran, just like in the Manda Sahib, before you sit to do Simran, recognize that you have to humble the mind. The mind's now going to do a jugti given by the Guru who's asked you to meet Sach. We're not sitting here just repeating a word. We're sitting here doing a specific method that was given by Sach. So just like we saw, I think it was lesson 2, where we said, recognize the thoughts inside us and the thoughts in the space around us, the thoughts that are going around in the conversations in the community, whether it's friends or family that's happening, and recognize that you can pick a thought, whether you want to be part of that conversation or part of that thought or not. And once you decide to be part of it, then it can go inside you and start to manifest as well. So when we're doing Simran, what we recognized last week when we did Simran, we started to do Wa, He, Gu, Ru. We started to do Charakar, and in between any of these 4 points, the mind can be taken away. And we had a conversation after the session. We would do our Q&A. And some people said the whole story began just between me saying Wa on my mouth and He on my heart. Between that area, I had already a full drama playing in my mind. The only difference is, through the gyan that comes from Guru Maharaj, you know that the drama's happening. You know that the story has started to play. You know that you're doing one action, the mind's doing a different action. So just knowing this helps a massive amount, because it essentially allows you to say, I can have an opportunity to correct myself. So there's lack of focus. That can be because you have overstimulation, lots going on around you. But the fact that you recognize this is a huge, huge thing. Yeah. Next part, though, is once you recognize this, the next part is to really understand, where is my home? Where's that space I have inside me that I can access, that when it gets too crazy, when there's too much going on, when there's too much noise, I have a home to quickly escape to have that peace again. So when we're doing Simran, and once you start to slowly get rid of these furne that are coming in, these thoughts that keep coming in, and you start to recognize, actually, when I put my dhyan here, these furne go away. When you start to feel this experience, you'll start to do it even when you're sitting in a community of people all having a conversation. And if you're not really part of that conversation, you can just put your dhyan away. So it's very important to understand, through your Simran, you're trying to get to that position where you can move your dhyan away and have that space again. And then you decide whether you want to engage or whether you want to reduce this overthinking that's taking place inside you. And once you start to get to there, that's when you start to feel the bliss. So we've been spending quite a lot of time and we've been over talking for sure. What did we learn? So week 1, understanding anger, we had that comparison between Gurbani and psychology, and the reason why we did that was because we wanted to really recognize what have we learned about anger, what have our parents taught us, what our school taught us, what our society taught us, what have I learned in my job, and what's Gurbani telling us, and why is it so confusing? So we learned good things from both. One side on the psychology side, but also in Gurbani as well. You have to learn how to speak well. You need to be able to speak well in difficult situations, because that by itself can reduce the anger landscape, whether it's the anger landscape going inside you or whether it's the anger in other people. You can quickly reduce it by just speaking effectively. Yeah, setting sensible boundaries with people so that people don't get to a point where they're going to hurt you, or you get to a point where you're going to hurt other people as well. And understanding that you are not anger, you are Jot Swarup. Anger is separate. Anger is one of the Panchdoot. Its name is anger. That's not you. It's different people. And anger is not part of your being. The Jot Swarup is clean. Anger cannot be part of your Jot Swarup. Anger is manipulating you. In week 2, we looked at exploring the root cause of anger, driving into the objective of the Panch Jod. So we looked at, in society, in life, how we've been taught about anger. And we talk about trigger moments when someone said something, something's happened, and I've got upset. But in Gurbani, it says anger started since we were born. Anger's been here since then. So it's very important to know there's a huge difference between the two. Mind is trapped inside this double-walled cage controlled by Gal. So remember when we talked about if we sit inside Bhavsagar, why is it so hard to get out? We showed the diagram where the Man Jot is in the middle. You have one cage that's surrounded by the Panch Jod, and then another cage around this, where the Bap and Duk, I think, are both outside it. Sorry if I got that wrong. And the moats between all three is Satugun, Rajagun, Tamagun. So all this has been designed to keep you captured and keep the mind in control of the Panch Jod. What we're doing is getting the awakening of or at least the gyan that this is my condition today, and I have the opportunity to change that condition. And all we're doing is remembering where we came from. Through remembering slowly, you remember where you came from. And then week 3, we identified with the mind, how the mind's being manipulated by the Panch Jod. So we looked at the 3 homes. Remember, we talked about this a few times: Bhavsagar, Sun, and Sachkhand. We did a bit of exercise to recognize where are we sitting each. And then we also recognize, most important, my anger only exists in Bhavsagar. So you have options. You don't have to sit in Bhavsagar. You can go out. And in Sun, we are free from the Panch Jod. So even if Waheguru Maharaj hasn't called us all the way to Sachkhand, we can still go to Sun. Go to Sun is your own home. So we showed that in the diagram, the Harmandir Sahib. The most important thing is we're trying to wrap this all together, so you have that constant awareness of where these Panch Jod are affecting you and where you can go not to be affected by these things. So over the past 4 weeks, we've been speaking a lot. I want to beg for everyone's forgiveness. Anything we've said wrong, any misrepresentations, mispronunciations of words, anything we've said to offend anyone, anything that could have been misinterpreted, please forgive us. We're still students, we're still learning ourselves. So we're going to stop now. We'll stop the recording, and then we can continue any discussions afterwards. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.